The all hands call was a complete train wreck. The CEO gets on looking like he's about to read a hostage statement and announces a company wide salary freeze, effective immediately. The reason? The classic economic uncertainty. You could feel the shock through the screen. People were furious. And me, I unmuted my mic. In the most sincere voice I could manage, I said, "On behalf of everyone here, I just want to thank you for your leadership and transparency in these difficult times." The silence was epic. They thought I was the ultimate team player. They had no idea I just lit the fuse on a time bomb they built themselves. This is the story of how thanking my company for freezing my pay led to a fallout they never saw coming. My name is Virginia. I'm 32 years old. To get why I did it, you have to know I wasn't just some guy on the payroll. I was practically part of the furniture. I joined a decade ago, right out of college, as a junior data analyst. Back then, the company was smaller, scrappier. We all wore a dozen different hats. My job title said I ran reports, but really my job was everything else. A system breaks, I learned how to fix it. A process was a mess, I'd spend my nights building a better one. I was the quiet guy, the one who stayed late, not because anyone asked, but because I saw a problem I knew I could solve. I took pride in being competent, in making the complicated simple. Over 10 years, I'd climbed to a senior role, but my real value wasn't my title. It was the decade of institutional knowledge I had stored in my head. About 6 years in, the company was blowing up. Our logistics and billing systems were a disaster, a patchwork of old software and spreadsheets that were barely holding on. The official plan was to hire some big, expensive consulting firm. They quoted a 2-year timeline and a 7-figure price tag. The board naturally freaked out. So I stepped up. I told my manager, a guy who actually got how the business worked, that I could build an interim solution, a custom platform to integrate everything, automate the grunt work, and just keep things stable. I told him I could do it in 6 months. He gave me the green light, but nothing else. No budget, no team, just a show me what you got. So I did. For the next 6 months, I worked my normal 8-hour day, then stayed for another 6 running on cheap coffee and stubbornness. I coded, I tested, I tore my hair out, and I built the entire system from scratch on my own time. I named it Helios after the Greek god who pulls the sun across the sky, because that's what it did. It kept the lights on. When it launched, it was seamless. Invoicing errors dropped by 90%. Logistics times were cut in half. It was a massive win. I got a decent bonus and a pat on the back. But more importantly, Helios became the company's central nervous system, and I was the only person who really knew how it worked. It was only supposed to be a stopgap, a brilliant but fragile fix. But as the years passed and the company saved millions, the long term plan just evaporated. Helios became permanent, and so did my unpaid, unofficial job as its sole guardian. I was the guy getting a call at 3 a.m. because a server hiccuped, and I'd always roll out of bed and fix it. I never complained. I thought of it as my contribution. I was loyal, and I figured that loyalty would eventually be rewarded. That belief started to die the day Chad showed up. He was the new VP of Strategic Optimization, a title so vague it had to have been born in a boardroom. Chad was a walking, talking corporate cliche. He wore expensive sneakers with his suits and used words like synergize and paradigm shift in every sentence. He'd never worked in our industry, but he was dead set on optimizing us into a new dimension of profitability. His first move was a war on inefficiencies, which really meant a war on anything that made the office feel human. The free snacks vanished, replaced by a vending machine. The flexible work from home policy was gutted. Morale went right off a cliff. And the weirdest part? The company had just had a record breaking quarter. We were making more money than ever, but Chad talked like we were about to go under. Then came the all hands meeting, mandatory video call. The CEO gave a short, awkward speech about the global economy, using a lot of vague terms like headwinds. Then he passed the mic to Chad. Chad's smile was blinding. Team, he started. In light of the current economic uncertainty, we've made a proactive and strategic decision. He paused for effect. To ensure we can avoid any workforce reductions, we will be implementing a company wide salary freeze effective immediately. The chat just exploded with question marks and angry emojis, but our mics were muted. A total freeze. No merit raises, no promotions, no cost of living adjustments. Nothing. He tried to spin it as some noble sacrifice we were all making together. But the real message was crystal clear. After a year of record profits, the people who actually made it happen would see none of it. All this from the guy who probably just got a huge signing bonus. He ended with, I know I can count on all of you to be team players as we navigate this new paradigm. Just silence, heavy, awkward, digital silence. Everyone was just staring at their screens, stunned, and in that moment, something inside me just snapped. It wasn't loud, it was a cold, quiet click. I thought about the decade I'd poured into this company, the late nights, the weekend calls, the thankless job of keeping Helios alive. I looked at Chad's smug face on my screen, and I knew exactly what I was going to do. I unmuted my microphone. It was like a gunshot in the silent meeting. Every face on the call snapped to my little square on the screen. Chad, I said, my voice just dripping with fake sincerity. Behalf of everyone here, I just want to thank you for your leadership and transparency in these difficult times. It's inspiring to see management taking such decisive steps to protect our collective future. Chad's face lit up. He'd found his model employee. Thank you, he nodded, beaming. That's the kind of proactive, positive mindset that will get us through this. He thought I was on his side. He had no idea my thank you was a resignation, not from my job, but from my goodwill. And my goodwill was the only thing holding his company together. After the call, I didn't complain to my coworkers. I didn't start polishing my resume. I just sat in my home office staring at the wall. The anger was there, burning in my stomach, but it was buried under this feeling of ice-cold clarity. For years, I'd been working under an unwritten contract. I gave them my nights, weekends, and my brain power, way beyond what I was paid for. In return, I got what I thought was respect and security. My thank you to Chad wasn't just sarcasm. It was the sound of me tearing that contract into tiny little pieces. My mind went straight to Helios, the system I'd built with my own two hands. It was my proudest achievement, and I now realized it was also the company's greatest weakness. It was a fortress held together with digital duct tape and my personal knowledge. There was no documentation, no manuals. No one else had ever learned how it worked because why would they? I was always there to fix it for free. I had built a secret weapon, and for 10 years, I'd been pointing it at myself, sacrificing my own time to protect the company from its own bad decisions. They had saved millions by not replacing Helios, and those savings were built on my free labor. The salary freeze wasn't just about money, it was about value. The company had just told me that all my extra effort, my loyalty, my dedication, it was all worth exactly zero. They froze my pay, but expected my free work to just keep flowing. You can't have it both ways. You can't call someone a valued asset and then say their value has a fixed price no matter what they do. That was it. That was the quiet realization. My revenge wasn't going to be loud. I wasn't going to sabotage anything. That's not me. I'm a quiet professional. My revenge would be quiet too. It would be malicious compliance. I'd been praised for being a team player. Fine. I was about to become the most by the book team player they had ever seen. I pulled up my official job description from HR, a generic 5-year-old document. It said my job was to generate quarterly reports and analyze market data. Funny, I couldn't find 24/7 on call support for a mission critical system anywhere on it. The plan was simple. I would do my job, exactly my job, and nothing more. The work I was paid for, I'd do it perfectly. The work I wasn't paid for, well, that work just didn't exist anymore. Helios was on its own now. I was just going to let the natural consequences of their brilliant decision play out. That next Monday felt different. I logged on at 9 a.m. sharp. I didn't check the Helios server logs like I always did. Instead, I started on my quarterly report. At noon, I blocked out a full hour on my calendar for lunch and actually walked away from my desk. At 5 p.m. on the dot, I logged off. 3 minutes later, my work phone buzzed. An automated alert from Helios, a data sync error, a tiny problem I could usually fix in 10 minutes. I glanced at the notification, took a sip of water, and put the phone face down. Not in my job description. The next morning, a junior manager frantically messaged me. The West Coast sales data didn't sync. The team can't see their numbers. Can you look? I let the message sit for an hour. Then I replied, "Thanks for flagging. That sounds like a significant issue with the Helios platform. As my role is focused on data analysis, I don't system maintenance. For Chad's new framework, I'm focusing on my core responsibilities. I'd recommend filing a formal IT ticket." The response was pure confusion. "But you always just fix this." I typed back, "New paradigms require new processes. We all have to adapt." That became my go-to line. Every time a request came in that was outside my job description, I'd politely redirect it using Chad's own corporate buzzwords. "That falls outside my core competencies. Please route that through the appropriate channels." To ensure strategic alignment, we need to follow the established workflow. The first cracks appeared within a week. The little glitches in Helios I'd always been quietly fixing started to pile up. Data was lagging. Reports were missing information. The whole thing was getting slow. It was like watching a car run out of oil in slow motion. It was still moving, but it was making some very ugly sounds. The IT ticket, of course, went straight into a black hole. Chad had created some new strategic oversight committee to handle all requests. And I knew for a fact Helios wasn't even on the company's official list of IT assets. As far as the new leadership was concerned, it didn't exist. 3 weeks in, Chad sent a company-wide email praising everyone for their resilience. He even gave me a special shout out for championing the new focus on core responsibilities. He was so oblivious, he was literally applauding my protest. It was the most surreal moment of my career. Meanwhile, the finance and logistics departments were starting to panic. End of month invoicing was a disaster. They were doing hours of manual work because they couldn't trust the system anymore. Productivity was tanking. My own manager finally pulled me aside. "What is going on?" he asked. "I know this isn't you. Just fix it, please." I was perfectly calm. I am doing the job I am paid to do. The salary for that job is now frozen. The job of being a 24/7 engineer for a complex undocumented system is a different, more demanding job. That job would require a different, unfrozen salary. The company made its position clear. I'm just respecting that position by only doing the work I'm compensated for. He had nothing to say. He knew I was right. The company had drawn a line in the sand. I just decided I wasn't going to cross it for free anymore. The slow burn was getting hotter. The end of the quarter was coming, and Helios, the sun god, was about to go down. The end of the quarter is everything for a public company. It's when the final numbers are tallied for shareholders. It's when the financial health of the business goes on display. And every single bit of it depended on Helios. The system finally blew up on a Tuesday, 2 days before the quarter officially closed. The main invoicing module, the part that processed every single dollar of revenue, didn't just crash, it corrupted the entire database for the last 90 days of transactions. So all of our revenue for the quarter was just gone. Panic doesn't even begin to cover it. It was absolute unfiltered chaos. The CFO was screaming, the head of sales was losing his mind, and Chad, our VP of strategic optimization, was suddenly looking very, very unoptimized. An emergency C-suite meeting was called. I was summoned. I joined the video call to a screen full of furious, terrified faces. "What happened?" the CEO demanded. I stayed completely calm, just a quiet professional. "It appears the primary invoicing database in the Helios platform has suffered a critical failure." "Fix it!" Chad barked, his usual smugness replaced with raw fear. "You're the only one who knows how this thing works. This is your responsibility." I let that hang in the air for a second. "This isn't a simple bug fix," I explained calmly. "This is catastrophic data corruption. To rebuild the database and manually verify 3 months of transactions would be a monumental task. It would require weeks of round-the-clock work and a level of specialized expertise that falls significantly outside the scope of a senior data analyst." I paused, then delivered the final blow. "And given the company's current salary freeze, I can't in good conscience take on what amounts to a senior consultancy role without a formal contract and compensation structure. It just wouldn't align with the company's cost-saving goals." I was using their own garbage logic against them. The CEO just stared at me, then at Chad. You could see the light bulb go on. The team player who had thanked him for the pay freeze was now using that same freeze as the reason he couldn't save them. The trap had sprung. "Get it done," the CEO said to Chad, his voice dangerously low. "I don't care what it costs." The aftermath was brutal. They had to fly in an emergency team of external consultants at over $500 an hour per person. The initial quote just to figure out the problem was $250,000. They missed their quarterly reporting deadline, and the stock price tumbled. The total damage between the consultants and the hit to their market cap was easily in the millions. 2 weeks later, a memo announced that Chad was leaving to pursue other opportunities. Fired, humiliated. His grand vision had imploded because he couldn't grasp the value of the one person holding everything together. A week after that, I quietly put in my resignation. I'd already accepted a new job at a competitor with a 40% raise and a fat signing bonus. During my exit interview, the HR director asked if there was anything the company could have done differently. I just smiled. "You could have approved my 3% raise." In the end, it was never just about the money. It was about respect. It was about a company that saw its people as numbers on a spreadsheet to be optimized. They took my loyalty for granted and learned the hard way that the most valuable part of any business is the people who actually care. They found out that goodwill isn't free. They thought they froze my pay, but what they really did was freeze their own company. My little thank you was just a reminder that every action has a consequence. They just never thought the consequences would be for them. It really shows you that sometimes the most powerful move you can make is to just stop doing the work you're not being valued for and let the ensuing silence speak for itself. What's the most out of touch thing a boss has ever said to you? Share your story in the comments. I read all of them. And if you enjoyed this little tale of corporate karma, be sure to like and subscribe for more. Thanks for watching.